All right, perfect. So with that, then I am going to hand it over to Scott Prater, who is going to give us our opening remarks.
Thank you, Arran. On behalf of me, Scott Prater, I'm the current chair of the Fedora Governance Group, and Alexander Berg-Weiss, who's the chair-elect and will be the chair next year. And on behalf of the entire Fedora Governance Group, I'd like to wish you a good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're joining us from. And I'd like to welcome you to this third annual, the 2025 Fedora Virtual Showcase. It's great to see such an engaged community here, to see so many people attending today. And I know that Arran talks about it, and it's a constant theme of our talk, but what makes Fedora strong is the community. This event is all about you and the way that you use Fedora to create stable and resilient digital repositories. So what's coming up in our future? As you probably read and heard, the big thing on the horizon is Fedora 7. This upcoming release will bring an updated and even stronger Fedora platform. Thanks to the committer team, Dan, Ben, Jared, Damien, and others, the dependency upgrade project that we worked on last year finished ahead of schedule, and it resulted in a Fedora platform that has updated dependencies, more test coverage, and general overall improvements to the application. And it makes it, I think, one of the most secure, efficient, and maintainable releases that I've seen in the project's history. This group has done a really good job cleaning up the code, making it stable, and it's really impressive just how nice it is. So stay tuned over the next few months for updates about the release, and there'll be ways that you can help out with community testing. And coming back again to community, that's a drum I'm going to continue to bang. What makes Fedora strong, even though we have a great technology and really good code base now, what makes the program strong and resilient for over the past 20, 25 years is the people. And over the past year, we've seen a really big surge in community engagement, particularly in Europe. We have libraries, museums, archives, and research institutions across the world are joining the community. They're adopting the platform, and we see them helping each other solve problems and share their implementations. It always gives me a little kind of jolt of pleasure when I see a new name in our Fedora Slack channels. Your contributions, whether they're code, documentation, or advocacy, they are the things that are shaping Fedora's evolution. It's the community that determines where we're going next and what happens with Fedora. This has always been and continues to be a community-driven platform, and your voices matter. And towards that end, Arran and the Lyricist team and spend a lot of time organizing events like this, places where the community can meet each other and engage. Over the last year, we have this event, the Virtual Showcase, which is a really good place where we see how busy you all have been in testing and designing systems around Fedora. We had the Fedora Camp in Vienna this year, and that was a huge success. We had a lot more registrants and people attending than we imagined. And it brought together a lot of new faces and new members in Europe. Then we had our user group meeting at Open Repositories in Chicago, and that was also really well attended. And it gave a lot of us a chance to meet face to face, which I personally really appreciated. And then finally, we have the virtual trainings, all of which have been sold out. And that is proof that Fedora expertise is in high demand, and that people who want to know how to use Fedora, how to be expert in it. So all these events are really good indications of how strong our community is. These communities are essential to our mission, not just to create the open source repository, but to basically have a self-sustaining community of like-minded contributors and repository practitioners. You're the reason why Fedora exists. And we see that adoption of Fedora 6 is rising steadily. Over 40 institutions that we know of have adopted Fedora 6, and at least 8 more have plans to migrate to 6. In addition, there's been quite a bit of work in our partners in the Samvera and Andorra projects to fold Fedora 6 into their platforms. It's starting to see more and more institutions adopting Fedora, especially the 6 branch, validates our goals and our intention to build a flexible open source repository that can support complex digital ecosystems. This growth that we see the adoption, and I'd have to say is probably the most sincere testament we have to all of your work, the work of our developers, and the work of the community. So, what's next? This year's showcase is filled with sessions that highlight real-world implementations, technical deep dives, and community success stories. I hope that you'll all take part, that you'll engage, you'll ask questions, you'll share your experiences, and you'll connect with peers. Fedora thrives because of the collaboration, and your participation is what makes it continue to be successful. So I want to close by thank you all for being here and thanking you for your commitment to the open source and to the community. Your participation is essential to the continued health of the project, and I'm really grateful that you've made time to spend the next few days here with us and with your peers. And I just hope that this showcase proves useful and inspiring to you also. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Scott. I think a lot of what you said, I was going to also additionally mention in our community update, but I appreciate your reflections on the community, the growth, and kind of where we're headed. So thank you for that. All right, we are going to move ahead. I have a community update to give, and then we're going to be following that up with Neil Jeffries is going to be giving an overview of the Oxford Common Fileout, OCFL, and some information on version 2. So we will move ahead. I know we said we were sticking as tightly to the timeline as possible, but in all fairness, my community update is probably a smidge longer than 15 minutes, and I think Neil could probably use a minute or two bonus on his end as well, because he has a lot to cover. So if we're all right with that, we're gonna move right ahead. So I'm breaking my own rules right away. But here we go. Okay, so Fedora Community Update. Now, some of you have likely seen parts of this presentation if you've attended Samvera Connect or you were at Fedora Camp. Obviously, it's updated with some information, but these are we kind of call this our highlight reel. So this is what we like to come and talk about, where the Fedora community is at, our growth, and kind of where we're going from here. So to kick it off, this is a snapshot of the Fedora community as it stands today. So we represent a global community of users, as you can see probably from even just looking around the room today. Being an open source piece of technology, though, we don't have a concrete method for determining how many users are actually in our community, how many people are actually deploying Fedoras, but we are actively working on trying to update those records. And we do need your help to do that. Looking around the room today, I think most of you are in my good books, but for anybody that hasn't and is using Fedora, there's a QR code there to go ahead and register your Fedora instance. So what we're doing here is we are trying to build up our public-facing Fedora registry on our website. So this is a self-report list, if you will, of Fedora implementations. It's a great resource for both us as the program team and for other community members to be able to look and see who else is using Fedora and what versions they're on, what they're storing in Fedora. The submission form is relatively lightweight. You are able to enter multiple instances in one form. And if anybody did it previously and remembers what that looked like, you had to do a separate submission for each instance of Fedora that you have. But this is a really critical tool for us to be able to understand more accurately where Fedora is being used and how around the world. So this is going to help us update and keep those records as accurate and current as possible. So, just urging you to consider going and registering your instance if you have not done that. The majority of our development efforts within the Fedora community are done by our wonderful team of committers who have been mentioned several times today, and we will continue to mention and thank them because they do a lot of the heavy lifting. We meet regularly to discuss current work, talk about open issues, and address community support requests. Over the last year or more, we have been doing some very intentional work on looking to create more ways for you to contribute to the community, especially people that are less technically inclined or maybe don't feel that they're skilled enough to, review PRs or, do the development efforts. We are trying to make more opportunities for all contributions. All contributions to us matter. They're all important. Scott mentioned this before, whether it's documentation review, whether it's supporting your fellow users on Slack, all of these pieces help kind of push the program and the community forward, and we appreciate each and every one of those things. So trying to find more ways to get you involved is something that we've been working on, and I'd say that it's working, and I'll share some of our highlights and successes in just a moment here. This is also here is a snapshot of all of the current technology as it stands today. We are the most current used version, or the most current version is Fedora 6.5.1, but there's more information on Fedora 7 coming up in the next little bit, both in my talk and in Dan's talk in a little bit. So exciting news on that front. I skipped way ahead. Okay. So a lot of times you'll hear that Fedora has its organizational home at Lyrasis. So what does that mean? So Fedora is obviously open source. It's a community developed piece of software. And so with that comes, we need to be able to focus on program needs. So Fedora, alongside 4 other well-known open source technologies, DSpace, Archive Space, Collection Space, and Vivo, we all have our organizational home at Lyrasis. And what this means is that Lyrasis supports us, i.e. the programs, and our programs by providing infrastructure and operational elements that we need so that Dan and I can focus on program needs. We can focus on the technology, we can focus on our community and our users, and we don't have to do all of that kind of administrative or infrastructure maintenance that Lyrasis handles on our behalf. So we can continue to operate in a way that's in the best interest of our users. And as our organizational home, Lyrasis provides us the ability to utilize some different resources and services that we could not do ourselves. So they support our work in that respect. Some of those infrastructure or operational elements could be things like critical and necessary infrastructure for things that we use every day, i.e. they support with our wiki, which holds all of our documentation. They support with our Zoom, which is hosting us here today, website hosting, things like that. Lyrasis also helps handle all of our fiscal and accounting elements. So they do all the billing, all the renewals, all the invoicing, etc. That is handled by them. I don't have to handle that myself. And then as well, hiring and HR services for Dan and myself. So these are all elements that are taken off our plate so that Dan and I have more time to be with our users and our community. So one of the things I do want to say here, though, is that while Lyrasis serves in this capacity, we as a program, so us as Fedora, we get to operate independently and we get to do what we need to for our users and our community. We make our own program decisions about sustainability and technical development priorities. We operate under the direction of Fedora Governance, so all of those priorities are established and set by a group of individuals that are Fedora community users. And then financially, also, Fedora is entirely supported by contributions from paying membership institutions. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But what this means is that every dollar that we have, that we spend, that we take in is for our program. And we fiscally operate independently from Lyrasis. So Lyrasis, though, acts as our partner, offering support and direction where needed, but giving us the independence to meet the needs of our unique individual communities. So hopefully that helps set the tone on what that relationship looks like and how we work together. This is the program team. You likely know us, but with Lyrasis as our organizational home, we have the ability and the support of Bridget Almus, who is the Director of Operations for the Community Supported Technologies and Hosting Services Division at Lyrasis. Bridget's going to be giving a session later on today, so you'll get to meet her then if you haven't had the opportunity. Obviously, the program team is Dan and myself. We are the paid program team for Fedora, and we're responsible for making sure everything here runs like a well-oiled machine and maintaining program operations. And then Dan and I are supported by our active committer and technical teams. They're mentioned, listed here, and then of course we're always looking to expand that list. But we'll talk a little bit about how you can do that coming up. This is how the Fedora community is structured. So you can see here that the Fedora community is really at the heart of everything that we do. We are responsible to you, our users and supporters, and prioritize your needs as we create our roadmaps and determine what actions we take next. So the Fedora Governance Group works collaboratively with the program team to ensure that all of the program priorities are being met. They act in the interest of the users at large, so the entire community. And then the technical teams work alongside the program team and are responsible for the development aspects or the development work. And they act as liaisons for technical decision making. So we turn to them when we need expertise in that area. We turn to governance when we need strategic direction and support. And then we all kind of work together for you as the community. And then, like I mentioned, we're able to draw on the expertise and resources from within Lyrasis through that organizational home relationship for the things that we cannot do or don't have the capacity to handle on our own. So that's kind of the structure of the Fedora community. So Fedora Governance. Governance itself is responsible for the strategic leadership of the program. They are the liaisons between the community and the program team, and then they help guide program decisions for all of our users. I've mentioned that before, but that is really their sole responsibility, and it's a critical one, right, as we think about future sustainability and things like that. So participation in governance provides users the opportunity to be part of that decision-making team and have input and bring expertise to setting the Fedora budget and overall program direction, things like that. Those are just some of the things that we tackle as a governance group. They're responsible for collaborative group, Governance is a collaborative group of representatives from using institutions who are invested and engaged in the overall operation of the program. So their institution is financially contributing to our membership program, but there are also community seats available and actively being filled on our Fedora Governance Group, as well as technical stakeholders from partner communities like Islandora and Samvera to ensure that all of the decisions that we're making align for the best in the best interest of our users. Right now is actually a really interesting and exciting time to be part of governance, though, or at least considering it for coming years, because Fedora is at this place of really stable growth. Adoption rates are rising, and we have a lot more users coming in from different parts of the world. So right now, we are focused on some critical elements about future sustainability. So being able to participate in those conversations and provide input and expertise is a really interesting opportunity that is on the table right now. So governance cycles run September to August. So we'll be, we're just getting started this year, but something to consider for the future. Some fun and interesting stats about Fedora today. So recently we've had it mentioned a few times, but this renewed energy and sense of enthusiasm for Fedora within the community. And, this gives us the opportunity to learn from new users, understand what they're doing, what brought them to Fedora. And this is all critical information for us. We've been able to help people navigate some unfamiliar situations to us as people come in and are trying new things. We've been able to support them through migrations, support them through new deployments, troubleshooting. And it's just been really exciting to see those people, like Scott mentioned, coming into Slack, new names, new faces, showing up at tech meetings. There's always a welcome space for new faces at the tech meetings, but it's really good to see that people are engaging in that respect. We now have, I personally, what a stat that I use, there's around 40 institutions that I know of. Again, remember, we're open source. We don't know where it's being used all the time, but roughly 40 institutions that I'm aware of that are on Fedora 6, which is great because when we first launched Fedora 6, even 18 months after that release was available, I could probably count on 1 to 2 hands how many institutions were considering it or at that version. So now we have this plethora of institutions who are doing it, and there's roughly 8 or so in active migration or considering what their migration process looks like to get to 6 or a more current version. And this is really encouraging, especially as we start to consider what support looks like in the future and what we're doing for sustainability of the software. Over the last 2 years, we have graciously welcomed 3 new members to the Fedora membership program, all of them coming from outside of North America. And then along with this, we gained 2 new members to Fedora Governance Group, continuing to expand the international representation that we have within this group, which is fantastic. So now I think we sit at around 25 to 28% of Fedora Governance comes from outside of North America, which is up, 10 or so percent, 10 to 15% from when I started just 3 years ago. So that's great growth. That is, to me, a more global and more representative group of individuals partaking in Fedora governance. Excuse me. So again, all really positive signs and active proof that our intentional investment in engagement is working. This is our highlight reel. Well, I mean, the whole thing is a highlight reel, but this is some of our favorite highlights from the last year. So Scott has mentioned some of these, but I'll just talk really quickly about them. We've been able to meet more regularly in person, and this is something that we've heard from the community. People like that opportunity to engage face-to-face, and so we're going to actively work on continuing to do that in the future. We had our second in-person user group meeting that was tied to open repositories last June, and I know open repositories is virtual this year, so we're going to evaluate what that looks like, but that's always been a very big success for us. But one of the most exciting things I think that we did this year was the relaunch of Fedora Camp this past September. So we had 30 users come together at the University of Vienna in Austria for 3 full days of presentations. We did 3 hands-on workshops that Dan facilitated, and lots of open discussions and collaboration, and really just a nice opportunity to be together and learn from one another. And so from what I've heard, and I don't want to toot our own horn, but this was one of the highest number of attendees at a Fedora camp in as long as I've known. So that's something that I think we should be really proud of. And I want to say a special thank you to our wonderful hosts from the University of Vienna for all of their work getting this off the ground. We really couldn't have done it without Raman and Ava. And to all of the presenters and participants that came, you really made this a landmark event for us. And I think this is something that we'll remember for a long time. And it was definitely beneficial to everybody that came. So thank you. This year, we also restarted some virtual training opportunities. So we held those 2 Introduction to Fedora workshops early last year. The intention was to hold 1, but due to high demand and sold out registrations, we had to launch a second. We've also been very fortunate to be able to participate or be represented at 6 or so conferences this past year. That's like 1 every 2 months or so. And we're obviously extremely happy when community members are going out and speaking about their implementations, because this is the best form of advertising we could ask for. People may get sick of things that, I come and present about. So it's always best when users do it on their behalf. So also this year, we successfully reviewed all of the documentation for Fedora 6 that existed on the wiki. So we combed through over 100 individual URLs, I'd say. We read, we checked on grammar, spelling, broken links, all of those things. And we were able to get all of that documentation reviewed and updated in under 6 months, which is incredible in my eyes. We kicked off the project last year at Virtual Showcase, and then through a series of live review sessions, we were able to get through it all. I think there might be 1 to 2 outstanding tickets that are just waiting on updates that we can get when we move to Fedora 7. But this is really a huge effort, and I just want to thank everybody who contributed to that. And then the last one here is a really big one, and we will be talking about this kind of a few times over the next 3 days, but a massive milestone here. So we launched back in March a large-scale dependency upgrade project, and we are on the cusp of being ready to release those updates in what's going to be the next major version release of Fedora since 2021. So this is a huge effort, and we really cannot thank that committer team enough. We're going to go back and do this a million times over the next 3 days, but thank them enough for their contributions. Because of their work, we're going to have that modern, more secure version of Fedora in your hands by early 2026. So more on that to come. But a lot to be really proud of and really be thankful for. This is our Fedora Camp attendees. So the group that was all there, I think everybody's in that picture, which is awesome. We had a great time. And so what are we doing now? I'm just going to go through this because we do have a whole session on future work. But as we finish the year out, I mentioned in the highlight slides, we've been hard at work on this dependency upgrade project. And for us, this involved a lot of, we did a full code coverage review. There was a lot of work doing dependency updates, something like 40 dependency libraries were touched, and bringing everything up to most current versions. And so we're just working on those last pieces to be completed, and then that means that we are ready for Fedora 7. So the communications have been out, and we've been speaking about this a little bit more actively in the community now, but we're very excited that it's almost here. This is going to be the first major version since 6, which was released in 2021. So it's, a little bit overdue, and but it is really the culmination of a Herculean effort by our committer teams. And Dan's going to talk about this in his update, but the best part about this is that for Fedora 6 users, there's going to be no migration required. If you're on an older version and you haven't made it to 6 yet, all of the existing tooling will work to bring you to Fedora 7. So nothing on that front changes. The documentation still exists. The tooling will still work. And it's really the best case scenario we can ask for when we're talking about migrations. And our hope is to have that in your hands early 2026. So what else do we have to look forward to? So more workshops in early 2026. Dan and I are working on finalizing the content and the cadence of those, but look out for information on that coming soon. We're also excited to share that, that was kind of like anticlimactic, but we are very excited to share that Fedora Camp will be back in 2026. So our gracious hosts at the University of Vienna have offered to welcome us back in September 2026. And this event is obviously open to everyone. Last year we had really great attendance, so we're looking to expand and build on the success of last year. What we want to start doing is being able to put the information out so that people can put this on their radar and on their calendars, so that you can all plan accordingly. We would love to have even greater attendance and representation. So, book your calendars. Mid to early September is what we're working on, and I'm going to be sharing the information as it becomes available. So that's really exciting. We do also intend to coordinate some more user group meetings, as I mentioned. And then once Fedora 7 is out the door, we're going to be turning our attention to what we want to focus on next. So polling the community, bringing the community together to understand what your priorities look like, how you can, how you envision Fedora sustainability looking in the futures, and then how we can achieve those goals. So we'll be having some sessions to do that. And then the last thing I just want to add here is that none of this work obviously would be possible without membership. So Fedora is entirely supported by the financial and in-kind contributions of all of our Fedora members. And without these contributions, we would not be able to do or be in the place that we are today. So Fedora membership obviously can take many forms. We're appreciative and welcoming of all levels of financial commitment. And Lyrasis has been very gracious in being able to support us in making those arrangements. So if your institution has specific needs or commitments, just reach out to me and we can work through something that makes sense for you. But new this year, we are now able to take one-time donations or contributions from individuals or from institutions via the Lyrasis website. So this launched alongside our World Preservation Day announcement, and I can share the link for one-time donations in the Slack channel or in the chat. But I do just want to say, one-time donations do not and are not intended to replace membership. But this is an opportunity to offer alternative options for people looking to contribute. So I'd just like to urge you to consider how your institution can be part of Fedora's future and part of Fedora's sustainability plan. So to help us keep our program running strong for years to come. So with that, these are the getting involved resources. I mentioned a lot of them. I shared a lot of the links in the chat and in the Slack channel. But these slides, oh, look, I reused a slide from Fedora Camp. Apologies for that. But you can get any of this information on the program for today. Oh, look, okay, so there's the QR code for consider making a one-time donation. But thank you. That is my community update. Apologies that it ran a little bit long. But with that, I'm going to pause for questions.